Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Deep cuts on the Lal Street despite a late recovery. The sensex loses over 900 points. The Nifty drops below 24,000. More than 6 lakh crores in market cap wiped out today. The rupee also hits a fresh record low against the dollar. India Inc. stares at its sharpest earnings downgrade since the pandemic. Nifty 50 companies see a 10% earnings downgrade on an average in October. Cement, energy, financial services and auto are the worst affected sectors. Tech companies and property developers are the outliers. Less than 24 hours before the US votes, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris launch an all-out campaign blitz in swing states. At least 78 million voters have already cast an early ballot. Kamala Harris grabs an unexpected lead in a poll carried out in Iowa, which is traditionally voted for the Republicans. Israel claims to have killed a Hezbollah commander inside Lebanon as the bombing campaign continues. The World Food Programme warns of a potential famine in Gaza. Crude oil prices inch higher after OPEC Plus nations delay an output hike. Auto stocks see heavy selling despite better than expected October sales from M&M, Hero Moto and TVS. Bajaj Auto misses the mark with domestic sales down 8%. The HSBC Purchasing Managers PMI shows an uptick in factory activity in October after hitting an 8-month low in September. India's auto industry revs up for an electric November. Royal Enfield to launch its first electric motorcycle tonight. Maruti Suzuki set to unveil a premium SUV. Mahindra Group will launch 2 luxury SUVs later this month as the competition heats up. As sugar stocks tumble on the Lal Street, industry calls on the government to increase the minimum support price and ethanol prices. Sugar mills warn of delayed payments to farmers and a potential default if the government does not intervene. At least 36 people are dead after a bus carrying 60 people plunges into a gorge in Uttarakhand. Authorities fear the death toll could rise as rescue operations continue. With 2 weeks to go for Maharashtra to vote, Alliance's attempt to end challenges from rebels as the deadline to withdraw nominations comes to a close. Initial reports suggest more than 40 rebel candidates have decided to stand down across the state. Let's start with the market action. The Sensex lost over 900 points today and the Nifty declined by over 300 points in what was a broad-based sell-off that we saw. The markets did pare some of those losses in late trade, but the Nifty managed to give up the crucial level of 24,000. Mid-caps also not being spared, down about 700 points, and the Nifty Bank lost about 458 points today. So across the board, selling pressure being witnessed. Prashant is standing by now to take us through the triggers behind the market sell-off. Prashant, what exactly is causing this kind of pressure?
A little surprising, Shireen, because nothing really gave an indication that you'd have a 300-point cut on the Nifty. Although I must say that from the lows of the day, there was a solid 150-plus point recovery that we saw on the Nifty. The Nifty Bank also came up from the day's lows, and of course the mid-cap and small-cap indices ending lower, but off the lows there as well. I'll just sort of run through the dateline in terms of the big events which are lined up over the course of the next 4 or 5 days. And I think this is important because the first up, of course, is US elections. By Wednesday morning, we will know who the new US president is. And you are seeing a bit of sort of pairing of risk across the board in global markets as well. It's not very evident, but you look at things like, for example, the US dollar, you look at the rates market in the US, you look at currency crosses like the USD JPY. Markets essentially were priming for a Trump victory. But as you're going closer and closer into the US election, I think there is a bit of pullback which is happening across those positions because betting markets now have also converged closer to where polling averages were. So it's like a 50-50 toss-up right now with just, less than 48 hours to go to the US election verdict. So that's the first reason. Nobody really wanting to take a position going into the outcome, which is very, very binary in that sense. The other one, of course, is China stimulus. This hope that, and I think, we spoke with Kotak Institutional Equities on Thursday, and I think the gentleman there put it well. There is competition for flows. And I think that is a big reason why, which was not there. I think this is a new thing which has happened over the last 1 quarter or so. And I think that's a big reason, that's at the margin a big reason why foreigners have been selling. There was this Reuters article which floated a package of 1.4 trillion with promise of more if Trump wins the US election. Third, of course, is the FOMC. which is, of course, I mean, consensus still expects a 25 basis point cut. Remember, the jobs data was very, very weak. But, of course, there were reasons which we flagged off behind the very weak data. Just to kind of circle back to individual names, etc., which saw large cuts. And again, unanticipated, because Hero MotoCorp, take that stock as an example, 20% from the highs going into today's session and another 4% cut. And sales in the festive month actually have been pretty good. Hero did recover a little bit, about 2% from the day's low. Bajaj was down 3.5%. Sun Pharma was lower. There were names like Grasim, Adani Ports, BPCL, which were some of the other losers. On the upside, you had Mahindra & Mahindra, which looked good. They've been sort of guiding for better tractor sales for a while. Tech Mahindra and Cipla were some of the other names. The broader market pressure shown through in PVR Inox, contrary to sort of the talk that maybe weakened box office collections have been good. Stock was down 6%, one of the biggest volume-led losers. There was Polymedicure. Some of these, Prudent Corp, a mutual fund distributor, some of these are just pullbacks after 3-4 days of very sharp run-ups that we've seen. Manappuram Finance was slower. ABFRL, Edelweiss was down 5%. Chennai Petro, Force Motors, CESE, transformer companies like Voltamp, and a real estate play like Brigade Enterprises were also lower. I just want to just quickly wrap up the gainers as well. Rainbow Hospitals continues its up move from last week. Azad Engineering, we had the company with us on Bazaar earlier. Large order, Jyoti Structures, Walkhart, Taj GVK back above 300 rupee levels once again after it's undergone a bit of a correction. From the all-time highs, this is essentially how the indices really stack up at. Nifty is down about nearly 9%. Nifty Bank is down about 6%. You have the mid-cap index, which is down 8.5%, and small-cap index, which is down about 6% or so from the all-time high levels, which is an improvement. The small-cap index actually was down almost 10%, about 5 days back, and that's corrected, and we're down about just 6% or so.
All right, Prashant, many thanks for joining us. Well, that was the market action. The lower than expected earnings reported by a clutch of large caps have prompted analysts to sharply downgrade their earnings forecast for the full year. Now, according to Bloomberg data, the earnings per share estimate for Nifty 50 companies has been cut by more than 10% in October alone. Cement, energy, financial services and autos are the worst affected sectors. IT companies and property developers are the outliers. Meanwhile, Jefferies has downgraded earnings estimates of more than 60% of the 98 companies that it covers. Jefferies says the cut is the highest since early of 2020, attributing this to above normal rainfall and weak government spending. So that clearly is weighing on market sentiment. In the money market, the rupee weakened to a fresh record low against the dollar. $1 US now costs more than 84 rupees as investors flock to the greenback ahead of the US presidential elections. Meanwhile, India's 10-year bond price is also perking up in trade and the yields softened. So that's the money market action for you. But straight to the big international story that we are tracking here on CNBC TV 18. The US presidential election campaign has entered the last lap with less than 24 hours to go for voting. Most opinion polls are pointing towards a dead heat. Democratic nominee Kamala Harris and Republican candidate Donald Trump in a nail-biting finish. It will be an all-out campaign blitz for Harris and Trump across the key battleground states. Today, Harris has urged voters to support free and fair elections and not fall prey to allegations of election fraud. Trump, while speaking at a rally in Georgia, accused Harris of violating her oath and eradicating the sovereign border. The turn of early voters has been high this time. According to University of Florida's data, over 78 million Americans have already cast an early ballot. This is nearly half of the 160 million votes cast in 2020, the highest turnout in the U.S. presidential polls history.
I would ask, in particular, people who have not yet voted, to not fall for his tactic, which I think includes suggesting to people that if they vote, their vote won't matter. Suggesting to people that somehow the integrity of our voting system is not intact so that they don't vote. And again, I think that it is a tactic. It is meant to distract from the fact that we have and support free and fair elections in our country. We did in 2020. He lost.
With your vote on Tuesday, I will end inflation. I will stop the invasion of massive numbers of criminals coming into our country. Thank you very much, Kamala and Joe. And I will bring back the American dream, and we'll bring it back stronger than ever before. But this is all you need to know. Kamala broke it, and we will fix it, and we're going to fix it fast. Every day, they're talking about extending hours and stuff. Who ever heard of this stuff? We should have one-day voting and paper ballots.
Well, and as the curtains come down on what has been a tumultuous campaign season, all eyes on the 7 swing states. Now, these states account for 93 electoral college votes and hold the keys to the White House. On your screens, we have for you the state success rate for the last 10 presidential elections. So, for example, Nevada has voted for a candidate who went on to win the presidential elections 9 out of the last 10 times. Kamala Harris has grabbed an unexpected lead in an Iowa poll. The poll conducted by Seltzer & Co. gives Harris a 3 percentage point lead over Trump. This would come as a jolt for the Republicans, as Iowa voted for Trump in the last 2 elections. Parikshit Luthra spoke to the American public opinion pollster Jeanne Selzer, the president of the company which conducted the poll. Selzer says she herself was shocked by the poll and explained the methodology behind it, as well as the factors for why Kamala Harris has leapfrogged in the polls since July.
Well, you're expressing greater confidence than I feel. This, of course, was a shock to see Kamala Harris leading Donald Trump. Donald Trump won Iowa the last 2 elections. So shock doesn't even quite do it justice, and confidence would be overstating the case. And as far as my reputation, let's hope it's intact after Election Day. I take the best shot I can with my polling methods to reveal the truth. There's nothing more I can think of that I could do that would be helpful in understanding this.
Right. Could you explain us the methodology and what really caused this tectonic shift, so to say? Who are the large voting groups who are now backing Kamala Harris, according to you?
Independent women have shifted. In earlier polls this year, they were voting in majorities for Donald Trump, and now they're in majorities for Kamala Harris. So one of the things driving this, we speculate, is that the abortion ban went into effect in July. So our June poll that had Donald Trump with a big lead shrank and then shrank again, actually with Kamala Harris leapfrogging over him into first place. One of the things that we know, 2 things. We know that a majority of Iowans think that all or most abortions should be legal. We know that the congressional race, we have 4 congressional districts, all of them held by Republicans. In the first district, which has been an intense race about abortion, the Democratic challenger is leading by 20 points. So it suggests to us that abortion is a big issue here.
But do you feel that the women voters in America will be deciding this election?
There's a case certainly in Iowa for that. Kamala Harris is winning by 20 points among women. Donald Trump is winning by 14 points among men. And other pollsters who work with candidates and with campaigns have said, you know, if you're a Democratic candidate, you need to win with women more than you lose with men. And that's exactly the state of the game right here in Iowa.
Ann Selzer, the most talked about pollster with the most talked about poll this election season. You can catch that interview with her on Countdown to the US election coming up at 9:30 p.m. with the best newsmakers and experts right here on CNBC TV 18. Well, tensions in West Asia continue to escalate. At least 4 people have been killed and many wounded after the Israeli military conducted an overnight raid in Lebanon. Lebanese officials say that around 10 people were wounded by an Israeli attack on government hospitals in the region. The World Health Organization has appealed for medical workers to be protected after Israel killed 2 more Lebanese paramedics. Meanwhile, Gaza's health ministry has said 33 Palestinians were killed and over 150 wounded in the latest 24-hour reporting period. The World Food Programme has warned that the humanitarian situation in Gaza could soon escalate into a famine. This as Israeli military continues to severely restrict the entry of food and other supplies into the enclave. Israel has also attacked a hospital in northern Gaza, severely wounding a child and damaging the facility's nursery. Oil prices surged by over $1 after OPEC Plus said it would delay a planned December output hike by 1 month. The group of oil exporting nations was due to increase output by 180,000 barrels a day in December. Remember, OPEC Plus had delayed the increase in output from October because of falling prices, weak demand and rising supplies. Now, this comes as Oil Minister Hardeep Puri met with OPEC Secretary General at a petroleum exhibition in Abu Dhabi to discuss India's partnership with OPEC. India's manufacturing activity accelerating in October after slowing for the previous 3 months. The HSBC Purchasing Managers Index compiled by S&P Global rose to 57.5 in October from a reading of 56.5 in September, which was the lowest in 8 months. Any PMI reading above 50 indicates expansion. Auto stocks saw some heavy selling today. This was in line with the broader markets, but this despite the fact that they delivered better than expected October sales, at least from M&M, Hero Moto and TVS. Festive cheer drove both wholesale and retail sales of both passenger vehicles and two-wheelers. Bajaj Auto missed the mark with domestic sales down 8%. Now, India's auto industry is revving up for an electric November. Royal Enfield will unveil its first electric motorcycle tonight, while Maruti Suzuki is set to unveil a premium SUV. The Mahindra Group will also launch 2 luxury SUVs later this month as the competition heats up. Parikshit is standing by now with the details on electric November, Parikshit.
That's right. Mainstream automakers in India launching their electric vehicles with a bang. So today we are going to see an unveiling of the Suzuki EV. That is the first electric vehicle from the Suzuki camp, which has been made in collaboration with Toyota. Maruti Suzuki will be launching this in India in May or June next fiscal. The launch has been delayed by 2 months, is what we're told. The production of this car will take place in Gujarat. It will be exported to Europe initially in the first phase and then to Japan. The India launch will happen in April, followed by commercial sales. As far as the pricing is concerned, we're told that they would like to keep it very competitive and under 35 lakhs. Let's move on to Royal Enfield. This has been awaited for a very long time. Royal Enfield has been working on their electric motorcycle for about 5 years now. Now the production-ready motorcycle is being unveiled in Milan. It will be a premium motorcycle, the costliest motorcycle from the Royal Enfield stable as yet. Let's move on to Mahindra & Mahindra. The car maker, after the e-XUV, is going to come up with 2 new electric luxury SUVs on the 26th and 27th of November. One of them will be a luxury SUV and the other will be an off-roader, is what we're told, with very high connected car features and advanced semiconductor chips as well. So all eyes on all these 3 companies in the month of November to see what they have in store for the customers and in their EV pipeline in the years to come.
All right, it's Christmas early there as far as auto OEMs are concerned. Parikshit, many thanks. And stock-specific action, Sun Pharma shares down in trade after ruling by U.S. District Court delayed the launch of its new drug that treats alopecia. The court's ruling granted a preliminary injunction to U.S.-based company Incyte, which claimed Sun Pharma infringed on its patent. The drug's launch will be delayed until a favourable court ruling is passed or the patent in question expires in December 2026. Shapoorji Pallonji Group company Afcon's infrastructure listed on Dalal Street today. Shares listed at an 8% discount, but they did recover, ending the day higher by over 2%. Reliance Industries is likely to launch the initial public offer of its telecom arm Jio in 2025. This as per a Reuters report citing sources. It states that analysts have valued the IPO at over $100 billion and the conglomerate's retail unit will be listed much later. CNBC TV 18 has not independently verified that report. The government has invited applications for the post of Reserve Bank Deputy Governor by the 30th of November. This move is to find a replacement for Deputy Governor Michael Patra, whose term ends in January of 2025. In an ad, the Reserve Bank has laid out the criteria, including at least 25 years' experience in public administration. Now, the sugar industry has called on the government to increase the minimum support price and ethanol prices. Sugar mills have warned of delayed payments to farmers and a potential default if the government does not intervene. Manisha standing by with more on the industry's SOS to the government. Manisha.
Well, the sugar as a sector is jittery as it heads towards the crushing season. Most of the sugar stocks today were down between 2 to 8%. And this is as the sugar industry asks the government yet again. They have been doing it for the last couple of quarters now. One, to increase the minimum selling price of sugar, which has not been changed for last 4 years. And the second is the revision in ethanol prices. Well, remember, the crushing season in UP as a state has begun in this week. And it would be by 15th that you would see crushing for sugar mills start in Karnataka. Maharashtra could could be slightly delayed because the elections are in the third week in Maharashtra, and the crushing perhaps would be later on after that itself. Well, various sugar associations, including ISMA, has been asking, requesting, sending representations as well to the government to increase sugar minimum selling price and revise the ethanol prices. They say if that is not done ahead of the crushing season, then there is a widespread disruption that you could see within the crushing, within the sugar mills. Also that there could be a crisis. The payment to the farmers may perhaps not happen on time. It would be not viable running mills. The sugar industry also tells us that the mills could perhaps default and payments to farmers could get delayed. So there are all these scenarios if the pricing is not fixed here. If you remember the prices in last year, the sugar prices were at 38 a kg. They have declined to 34.5 to 35.5 for this season. Cost of production sugar is in the meanwhile increased to 41 a kg. So clearly it's not a very profitable scenario for the sugar mills, and if the price revisions do not happen, then it could perhaps weigh onto the profitability as well. FRP, the fair and remunerative price for cane in the meanwhile has been hiked higher every single year in last 4 years, but we haven't seen sugar prices being moved, and the ethanol prices have not been revised in last year and this year as well until now. So this is something that the sugar industry is looking forward to as of now.
Manisha, many thanks. Now, the United States has sanctioned 19 Indian entities, which include companies and individuals, accusing them of aiding Russia's war in Ukraine. More than 400 entities worldwide were targeted by the U.S. State Department. These include companies from China, Switzerland, Thailand, Turkey, along with 19 entities in India. Some of the Indian companies on the list include Abhar Technologies, Denvas Services, Galaxy Bearings and Lokesh Machines. Lokesh Machines is a listed company and that has supplied weapons to the Indian Army. Shares of Lokesh Machines tumbled on the Lal Street today. In a statement to the exchanges, the company said that they have been exporting machines to Russia since 2011 and none of the distributors have been featured in any sanctions list. The company also said it is in the process of reaching out to the US authorities to respond to the sanctions. India's External Affairs Ministry said the sanctioned companies are not in violation of the Indian law and the government is working towards sensitizing them on the applicable export control provisions. Up next on India Business Hour, Indigo all set to take to the skies with its business class offering from the 14th of November. That and more when we return. At least 36 people are dead after a bus carrying 60 people plunged into a gorge in Uttarakhand. Authorities fear the death toll could rise as rescue operations continue. With 2 weeks to go for the Maharashtra vote, Alliance's attempt to end challengers from rebels as the deadline to withdraw nomination comes to an end. Initial reports suggest that more than 40 rebel candidates have decided to stand down across the state. This includes the former BJP MP Gopal Shetty, who withdrew his candidature from Mumbai's Borivali constituency. And staying with Maharashtra, the Election Commission has ordered the transfer of Maharashtra's DGP Rashmi Shukla. This comes a few days after the Congress party alleged that the IPS officer had a bias against the opposition and accused Shukla of illegal phone tapping. The Election Commission has ordered the state's chief secretary to hand over Shukla's charge to the next senior-most IPS officer in the Maharashtra cadre. The first session of the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly witnessed chaos. This after opposition members Wahid Para of the People's Democratic Party moved a resolution against scrapping of Article 370. Para sought to restore the region's special status and thus ensured an uproar in the House. The situation escalated after BJP members demanded that the remarks be expunged and the resolution be rejected. A MiG-29 fighter jet of the Indian Air Force crashed near Agra in UP after encountering a system malfunction. The pilot ejected safely from the aircraft. The IAF's MiG-29 fighter jet had taken off from Adhampur in Punjab and was en route to Agra for an exercise when the incident happened. This is the second MiG-29 crash in the last 2 months. Delhi's air quality continues to worsen. The air quality index reading has surpassed 400 in multiple parts of the national capital, placing it in the severe category. The Commission for Air Quality Management has rolled out multiple measures, including penalties on polluting construction sites, vehicles and industries. The Supreme Court has pulled up the Delhi police and the government, asking them why the ban was not implemented. This is the last week in office for Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud before he retires. Indigo is all set to take to the skies with its business class offering from the 14th of November. Madhiya is standing by to take us through what Indigo's roster looks like. Madhiya.
Well, November is an important month for Indian aviation as well. We know that Vistara is merging with Air India, and 14th November is set to be a historic day for Indigo. It will debut the business class product on 6 daily flights on the highly popular Delhi-Mumbai route. The first aircraft with business class cabin landed in India last week and is getting ready to operate these 6 flights every day. The 3 flights from Delhi to Mumbai will be at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. while the flights from Mumbai to Delhi will be at 10 a.m., 4 p.m. and 10:15 p.m. Now, each of these flights will feature 12 business class seats. So that makes it 72 business class seats across the 6 flights on the Delhi-Mumbai route every day as of now. Indigo has set a flat fare of 18,000 rupees for all business class seats as compared to a higher fare on other carriers like Air India and Vistara. Looking ahead, Indigo says all flights on the Delhi-Mumbai route are expected to feature a business class cabin by early January. Then by March 2025, business class will be available on all flights from Delhi to Bengaluru and Chennai. And in the next 14 months, Indigo aims to induct a total of 45 aircraft equipped with business class seating. These planes will cater to 12 routes, so 268 Indigo flights are expected to have business class offerings in the next 14 months.
Madhiya, many thanks for joining us. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Do remember, tune into our special coverage of the US elections, that big interview with Ann Selzer, the pollster, who predicts that Harris has the lead in Iowa, which has been a Republican bastion, voted for Donald Trump in both the 2016 and 2020 elections. Could it cause the big upset? Well, tune in right after this to watch.